episode has a slightly different structure than we've had before. We're going to work our way through the book of Ruth. There's 4 chapters, so we're going to kind of
analog.
We're going analog. We actually have our Bibles out on the table,
which
here.
is so weird.
Yeah.
My Bible is like, oh my God, you're opening me? Oh my God, what are you doing? Yeah.
Well, I just love this Bible because I have all my rainbow, books of the Bible on the side. So it's like this nice subversive queering of the Bible, just even in the rainbow colors on the side. So anyway, so here we go. Yeah, so let's get into it. Chapter 1. Let's set the stage. What's going on here?
Basically, it starts in Bethlehem, and Naomi, whose name means sweet, and she must be a very sweet, lovely lady, they have to leave the country because of famine. So they leave where they are from, which is Bethlehem, and they go to Moab. She leaves with her husband and her 2 sons. While in Moab, and of course this is like probably years and years and years they were there, her 2 sons marry Moabite women. And that's kind of where the story begins, is now they are in Moab, and Naomi's 2 sons, her husband has died, and now her 2 sons have died, and none of them have any male heirs, which, as we talked about before in the biblical marriage episode, makes things very difficult for a woman. So Naomi then decides that it's time to go back to Bethlehem. There's now a famine in Moab, and so now she's going to go back to Bethlehem, where it's better, apparently. And she still has like house there. She left her house, she left everything, and she's just going to go back home. We have the 2 daughter-in-laws who seem to really love Naomi because, again, she was sweet. She's a wonderful woman, and they don't want to go. They don't want to leave her. So they cling to her. They hold her. Eventually, Naomi's like, listen, I'm not going to have any more sons for you. So go. One daughter-in-law leaves, but Ruth stays. And I believe it says she continues to cling to Naomi, which is the same word used when it says you shall leave your mother and father and cling to your wife. So I love that there's this moment where Ruth says, no, I'm going with you, and your people are going to be my people. Your God is going to be my God, and let's do this. Basically. So I heard the other day a very interesting idea that one of the reasons both these girls were very concerned is because Naomi was a bit older and they didn't think that she would make it all by herself. It was a dangerous trek. So it's a dangerous trek for one woman. I'm not sure why it would be a dangerous trek or any less dangerous for 2, but I think that was the idea, that Naomi was an older woman and probably wouldn't make the trek by herself. And so one of the girls was going to go. And Ruth is the one that apparently decided to. I don't know. Obviously, we don't know if this is true, but that's kind of the thought, that there was like a coin flip. Whoever gets, you go with Naomi, I'll go home. So anyway, which I think that's still kind of great that these 2 women really wanted to devote themselves to this woman.
So Naomi agrees that Ruth can go with her.
Yes.
And they head back to Bethlehem, which is ironic because there's so much famine in this beginning of the story and throughout the story. And Bethlehem means house of bread or house of food, which is so funny. It's like ironic, that at the beginning there's no food in the house of food and bread.
Wow.
There's no food there, so they have to leave, and then they have to go back there because then there is food. So they go back to Bethlehem, and people are talking, and they're like, is this Naomi? Isn't this the woman we knew? And then Naomi says, but I'm no longer Naomi. I am now Mara, which means bitter.
Bitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's been through so much, she's changed her name. She says, For the Almighty has dealt bitterly with me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Call me Naomi. And they came back at the beginning of the barley harvest, is what they say, what it says in there. So let's unpack a little bit here of what's going on. One of the things that comes up over and over again is that Ruth is a Moabite. And what that really effectively means in this context is that she's a foreigner.
Right.
And we talk a little bit about foreigners in the last episode where we were talking about immigration, but foreigner is one of the main categories of people who are just not part of the people of Israel or the Judeans. In fact, the Moabites, I think, the Israelites claim that they are descended from Lot.
Yeah.
Lot. Yeah, I think it was Lot. So the word on the street is that the Moabites are the products of incest. And so that's why we don't like those people from Moab. And so, so there's all kinds of layers of othering people. And so Ruth is from this people that are from an incestuous relationship to begin with. And so she is very other.
Very other, yes. So now Naomi has brought Ruth back. And I do like the scene where, like, as you pointed out, everyone's like, oh my gosh, is that Naomi? And who's the other one? and it's not like, oh, this is Ruth. This is Ruth the Moabite. Yeah, so I think that's very funny how it's like, it needed to be stated that, like, this is now her name, Ruth the Moabite. Not my daughter-in-law, not my friend. No, this is Ruth the Moabite.
Yeah, her defining characteristic.
Yes, is, we talked in the last episode about how the Hebrew Bible instructs people to take care of the foreigners. And one of the ways they do that was to glean in somebody's field, and they would let them do that. And then the primary reason is because they don't have any land, so they don't have any crops. They don't necessarily have a place to live. And so widows and orphans and foreigners were allowed to kind of glean from certain people's farms. And so Naomi has told Ruth, you're going to have to go glean. And this was kind of like their social security kind of system of the Bible. So it's really interesting. And landowners knew that that was part of their responsibility to the community is to allow people to do this. It's also a very dangerous thing because there's lots of people out there and you don't know necessarily who is a good landowner, who's going to, shall we say, take Ruth as his wife, meaning rape her. So she goes and she finds favor with this guy named Boaz, who sees her out there gleaning with the rest of the people. She's out there first thing in the morning trying to get whatever she needs to get. And she continues all the way through the day. She works really, really hard. And he starts to ask questions about, like, who is this? And he is then told that, this is Ruth the Moabite again. So I guess he's heard there's a Moabite in town. So anyway, but Boaz decides, and I love how it's, again, going back to what we talked about in marriage, Boaz says to a servant who is charged, to whom does this young woman belong? Not who's her husband.
Yeah.
Who's her family?
Who does she belong
to?
Yeah.
Because that's how it was with women, their property.
Yeah.
And then that's when they're told, oh, this is the one that came back with Naomi. Boaz then tells his people to protect her, to make sure she's okay, and to give her anything she needs. And she leaves that day with an abundance of food and goes back to Naomi and tells Naomi about the great time that she had, I guess. And come to find out, this is Naomi's family. Churches love a good welcome sign, but it turns out the fine print can be complicated.
Special guest Reverend Jacob Hero-Shaw joins us to share his story of being a trans person in the church and the calling that refused to let go.
Next time on Religious Rejects. So now you bring in this whole kinsman redeemer understanding.
Yeah. Which is a whole way that they were trying to deal with what happens if the main male kinsperson, family member to someone dies, who is then responsible for the widows, the orphans, the people who are left.
Right.
And so this is a way that they set up to be able to address this issue. And so there's what's called a redeeming kinsman, where you see this kind of come up in the New Testament, where at one point somebody asks, a woman, she's had 5 husbands and they've died, and who's going to be her husband in the afterlife when everyone is raised from the dead or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like they're trying to catch him in a whole thing. And so this was part of that practice, and this part of the legal code of how to take care of the vulnerable. And so the next kinsman, male kinsman, would be responsible for making sure that they were taken care of. And this could mean that they would marry the woman, and then the first male son would take the name of the woman's dead husband to continue that lineage.
Right. And that's an important point.
Kind of sounds very Handmaid's Tale to me.
Well, fair. Yes. I mean, yeah. But we need to remember that caveat, because that's going to come back later.
So they're saying that Boaz is a kinsman. It's a male kinsman to Naomi. So,
yes.
But we don't know yet in chapter 2 yet exactly how close he is or anything like that.
Right.
So, yeah. When Ruth goes back to Naomi after that day of gleaning and everything, and Naomi's like, well, what happened? And she said, well, I met this guy, Boaz, and,
I know.
and so then Naomi says, oh, well, that's our nearest kin. He's a relative of mine.
Okay, can we just stop right there?
Yeah.
Because Naomi's probably, we don't know how old everybody is, but can you imagine Naomi sitting there going, Boaz? Oh, is that the little kid that used to sit in the corner and pick his nose? You know what I mean? I'm sure she's got stories, right? Yeah. I just think that would be funny.
Right?
The real life to it all.
Yeah. And so, again, Ruth the Moabite responds to Naomi and talks about how Boaz said, stay with my people and, they'll protect you and you'll be safe in my fields. And Naomi's like, that's a really good idea. Please be, stay with the folks in his field, because that'll help protect you, And
let's just remind everyone that to be a woman in this time and in this age was very scary if you were not claimed by somebody. And you could be claimed at any moment, or just defiled.
Yeah. Raped.
And just raped. And then
sexually assaulted. Yep.
And now you're no good to anybody, quote unquote. I love the fact that Boaz, I hate the fact that women have to do this, but thank God Boaz is like, okay, you're only coming here because it's not safe. So,
and you see how precarious the existence of women on their own were. They didn't have safety, they didn't have freedom. It was a very precarious existence. So, So chapter 3, we get to the famous threshing floor scene.
So the harvest is happening. There's a big party, right? And okay, so also, can we just talk about the fact that this is Naomi's idea?
Yes.
So, or should we call her Mara? Is she doing this because she's so angry and she's like, God hasn't helped me, so I'm just going to take matters in my own hands and tell Ruth how to do this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would she normally have done that had she not been so angry at God?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting kind of But what she does is she basically sets a honey trap,
Right.
And she says, here's what you're going to do.
Yes.
She tells Ruth to go wash yourself, anoint yourself, put on your best clothes, and then don't go in there, hide, wait until they're done partying.
Basically, yep.
Yeah. So they're very liquored up. They're, very happy. Then go out and lay at his feet and uncover his feet, right? And that's where, you and I have talked, and many disapprove, that there is a possibility that the feet were actually a euphemism for male genitalia, and or we don't know, but what we do know, what most scholars believe, is that there was some sort of sexual innuendo there.
There's definitely innuendo there.
Yes.
The text does not say whether they actually had sex or not.
Right.
It's just deeply suggestive. And she comes in, uncovers his feet, and lays down. He wakes up. He's surprised, and he sees this woman there, and he's like, oh my goodness, who are you? And she said, I'm Ruth. Spread your cloak over your servant, for you are next of kin. Now, this also is interesting. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you do it.
Oh, okay. Because this whole spreading your cloak over thing is also really interesting, because it's a way. That is another way that sometimes people say that they are getting married, is to have a cloak spread over them.
Yeah.
And it's also a term that is used sometimes for God. God spreading a cloak over someone or spreading wings.
Yes.
It can be wings or a cloak. Spreading wings over someone to protect them or to keep them safe or to gather them in or something. And so there's a lot of layers to that particular thing. But she's basically proposing to Boaz here.
Yeah.
Is what it's coming down to. She's a very forward young woman.
Apparently.
Or old. We don't know how old she is.
We have
no idea. But
so now Boaz has to make a decision. Is he going to take this woman, or is he going to do something else? And for all intents and purposes, what we think happened is he did not take her, although some people are not sure. We don't know. But he basically tells her that, yes, I am your kinsman and redeemer, but there's another one closer than I. And so then he tells her to stay there for the night so he can protect her, because he doesn't want her walking out in the middle of the night and doing all that stuff. Stay here. And then in the next morning, you go home, and I'm going to go talk to this other dude.
And it's interesting, though, too, because he is concerned about how this all looks.
Yes.
Because he tells her to bring her cloak that she's wearing, hold it out, and he fills out 6 measures of barley so that she can put that on her back, and so that it looks like she's there. So she's got cover for why she was there. She was there to get some food.
Yes. So he doesn't want her to do the walk of shame.
Right.
We're going to make this look okay.
Yeah. You had a reason for being there, Ruth, the Moabite.
Right.
As one person said, the foreign from foreigner.
Yes, the foreign from foreigner. Yes. And so she does all that, and Boaz goes to find the dude. I love the fact that there is no name for the dude.
No.
It's just next of kin, next of kin, next of kin through the whole thing.
Yeah.
We'll just call him the dude.
Yep.
And so Boaz sits down with the dude and tells him, hey, Naomi's back, and you can buy her land, I guess, or whatever it is. And the dude is like, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, because I'm the next of kin, so it would go to me first. And Boaz, I love how Boaz kind of holds back the information that, oh, by the way, though, if you buy the land, if you take the land, you also have to take Ruth the Moabite. And that's when the dude is like, he doesn't want to pay that much, because for whatever reason, Ruth the Moabite, and he says he does not want there to be issues on his inheritance.
Yeah.
So he's like, he doesn't want to. And who knows what his motives were. Was it that she was a Moabite and he didn't want to have children with her, because then they would be of a mixed ethnicity, and he wants to keep everything pure in his line. And there's a whole lot of like possibilities there.
Yeah, right. It's not clear, he what it says, I cannot redeem it for myself without damaging my own inheritance. So he's just very concerned with his lineage and what's going to come. So yeah, big deal. Yeah.
So the dude does exactly what Boaz hopes and says, you take her. And I love that Boaz is smart enough to bring in a group of people to act as the witnesses too, which I thought was really smart of him. There's no question that I have offered you this. You were the closest first. Okay, you're going to say no. Everybody here, he says no. Okay, then I'm going to take her. Everybody see that. And it's a very interesting contractual law going on there.
And it's interesting because scholars point out that there's not, this version of the law is not actually known where this kinsman would have had to marry Ruth. So it's hard to know if it's just like a literary device in the story, but it is a form, the way Boaz sets it up is that it's a form of what's called levirate marriage. And so that Ruth's dead husband's family name would continue on. You know what I mean? It's that lineage. And so that's where that all comes from. Boaz then gets to take Ruth.
Yes. In the biblical sense.
In the biblical sense, in the marriage sense, in all the senses. To be his wife and to maintain her dead husband's name on his inheritance, and so that his name continues. And it's like everybody gets to witness that.
Yes.
Before God and everyone. This happens in front of everyone.
What I find interesting is that Naomi nurses the child, and technically that child should
so they get married. So they, they get together. Ruth has a child.
Yes.
And then gives it to Naomi. And then Naomi becomes the nurse and raises the child. And then the reason this becomes such an important book is that this child is named Obed, who becomes the father of Jesse, who becomes the father of David, who is a king of Israel.
Right.
And then much later, then in the Gospel of Matthew, it says that this is an ancestor of Jesus.
An ancestor of Jesus. And when they do the genealogy, they don't name Naomi. They actually name Boaz and Ruth.
Yes.
As the parents.
Yes.
Which apparently wouldn't technically be correct. I mean, it is technically biologically correct, but technically, in the book of Ruth, it's Naomi's son. So I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of fun.
So people look at this book and they're trying to make sense of this because there's these rules and laws and there's this debate at one point, especially in the book of Nehemiah. After an exile, people are coming back to the land. They're coming back to the land that they believe God gave them. And they're saying, oh, you have these foreign wives, you have to get rid of your foreign wives. And so many scholars today think that Ruth was written around that same time and that it was in reaction to some of those thoughts from Nehemiah and Ezra about getting rid of foreign wives. And this book of Ruth is saying, look, there's foreigners who are important and they can do good things and they're an important part of our community, and don't just kick them out. And it's interesting how that foreign inheritance of having a Moabite, Ruth the Moabite from Moab, Ruth the foreigner, it's from her line that she's the great-great-grandmother to, a really important king in Israel. So it's showing how it subverts this whole conversation, saying that foreign wives are terrible and you shouldn't have foreign people in your family and all that. It's subverting that. And so what it's showing is that there's this conversation that happens in the Bible. So when we say, the Bible says this,
Right.
you can say in the book of Ruth, this is one thing that happens. And then you can say in Nehemiah, it says something else, you know, and then you have to decide, how do we decide what is most important?
Right.
And in the context of the United States today in 2026, we are a year into this administration that has made a big deal about deporting illegal immigrants, is what they call them. And they have gone far beyond just deporting illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants. They have started detaining refugees. They have changed the asylum status of people from Haiti, from Cuba, from Somalia. And so that they're removing their asylee status, and they're making them, quote unquote, illegal immigrants now. And so there's a lot of debate in our country right now about who is an American and who is not, who's a foreigner, and what does that mean? And so this book of Ruth is a really fascinating glimpse at this debate that's kind of going on within the biblical texts about what do we do with foreigners? How do we respond to them, you know?
The only downfall to that and to Ruth is that she does make the argument for assimilation, because that's exactly what she does.
Yes.
And so because she chooses the God of Israel over, you know, the Moabite gods, that's why she was blessed. Do you know what I mean? So you have to, there's that. And then we can't forget, too, that Boaz's mother was Rahab the harlot, who also, the harlot, yes. Ruth the Moabite and Rahab the harlot.
Otherwise known as a prostitute.
Yes.
Harlot is like King James Version language. Yeah. Harlot.
It is, but I like it.
Do you?
Yeah, it's fun. But yes, for those that don't know what a harlot is, she is a woman of the night. I don't know why. She's a prostitute. Yeah. Anyway, so Rahab.
Yep.
And what makes Rahab also famous, if you will, is that she hid two spies, two of Joshua's spies, and in agreement that if she hides them and not tells the authorities where they are, that they will give her safe passage, her and her family, and that she will live amongst them. And so she does. And most people believe that, because I don't want to, I mean, the name is, we would say Salmon, Salmon, but I don't know if that's how it was pronounced. It feels weird to call him Salmon. So I'm going to call him Salmon. Anyway, so she marries him, and they have Boaz. So I love the thought that Boaz is like, yeah, I've been here before. I've had to watch my mother navigate being the other in Israel. And therefore, his heart was very much wanting to protect and do that as well. And then he marries Ruth. And again, this is where I think I always romanticize their relationship. I don't know what it was like, but this book always felt like, okay, that's a good guy. Like, you know, some of the other ones, I'm like, I would not marry him. Like David, I wouldn't marry David if he paid me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this guy, okay, maybe. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And then, of course, one of the things we've talked about before is that famous passage of Ruth pledging her devotion to Naomi is the language of heterosexual marriage ceremonies many times.
Yes.
And it's ironic because it's a woman saying it to another woman. It's not a heterosexual marriage at all. And so there's, you know, lots of queer readings of the Bible that, you know, this book in particular that are delightful and fun. The other thing that really struck me when I was doing my reading about Ruth is that the book of Ruth really speaks to many, many, many people about what it means when you are defined as the other. And so there's a lot of scholars who have grown up being othered in whatever context they're in, and then they end up becoming biblical scholars, so wild, and then they write articles linking their own experience of being other. So sometimes there's indigenous people who have done this, women. There's, Gail Yee was one of my favorite articles that I read. She's a Chinese American biblical scholar, and she talked about how often Asian Americans are considered the model minority because they're considered, like, the stereotype is that they're good at math and that they excel in all kinds of ways. And they're often compared more favorably. They're considered a more favorable, person of color than other minorities in the United States context. And so she talks about Ruth as a model minority, which is talking about that assimilation piece that you just referenced a little bit ago. And so there's just so many people that the Ruth story and that experience of being labeled other in a context, in a cultural context, really speaks to them. And I think that's really powerful.
It is. And I appreciate that Matthew put Rahab and Ruth in the genealogy to remind people that we welcome the other. And look at how God welcomed and used these women to produce the messianic line. And so many people say all the time, "Oh, I never read the genealogy. It's so boring." It's not
me.
And I love it because I'll be like, why is that person there? Because there aren't that many women. So when you do see a woman's name, you need to stop.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, why are you pointing out this woman? And these women are pointed out in that genealogy. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Matthew, or whoever wrote it.
And not Matthew, our producer, who's
okay,
who's flaunting behind the scenes right now, but the writer of the Gospel of Matthew. Yes. So there's a lot here, and it's really rich, and there's so much that is beautiful. The one other thing that I wanted to say is that chesed, which is the word where Ruth is clinging to Naomi, and it is the word used for when a man leaves his parents and clings to his wife. It's also used as a term of the way God loves God's people, the people of Israel. And it's this idea of loving kindness. There's a lot of different, depending on the context, as always in biblical translation, it can have many different meanings. And so there's like compassion, loving kindness. It's kind of the heart of how God loves God's people. And so there's a lot of layers to this book in the Bible, and it's a quick read too. It's not the shortest book in the Bible, but it's close.
Yeah, it's close. It's almost fairy tale-ish.
Yes.
I mean, especially as a child and you don't really know what's happening on, I always kind of thought of it as a little bit of a fairy tale, So
here's a question. Do you think it really happened?
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, technically they're in the genealogy, right? So at least these two people existed that we know of because we have their lineage. Did it happen like this? I'm gonna say yes. My Pollyanna rose-colored glasses world says yes, it did.
Okay.
Just the way it said it did.
Okay. I love it.
I don't want to think anything else.
Yes.
And what about you? Do you think it happened?
No. I don't. But that's that's just me. I mean, obviously Ruth shows up in the lineage and all that, so I'm not saying that isn't the case. But I think it's more a story telling, making a point, making multiple points.
They use these characters, peoples, to make a point to combat the Nehemiah, Ezra stuff.
That's my own personal theory at this point in my life, but that's just me. So we can have different opinions. Yeah. What? We don't have to have the same ideas? No. What a concept, everyone. What a concept. Yeah, so what are you going to keep, rethink, or reject from the book of Ruth? That's the question we have for you, our faithful listeners, watchers, our community. We are so curious to hear what you think about the book of Ruth and what really is special to you about the book. Can't wait to hear from you. Like, subscribe, share, comment, join us at religiousrejects.com and join the conversation.
Yes. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Bye.